She couldn't force people to write the story she wanted them to write. That has always been the fundamental conflict of Meghan Markle's life. So, she left the royal family, dragging Prince Harry with her, specifically to get privacy. But we all know what that word really meant. It meant control. It meant she wanted to be the editor-in-chief of her own history, erasing the chapters that didn't fit the St. Meghan narrative and highlighting the ones that did. But here we are in January 2026, and the one thing Meghan Markle has spent a decade trying to bury has just surfaced with the force of a tsunami. The internet has just been hit with a collection of brand new photos, and let me be clear, these are not the old, grainy images of her sitting on a random boat in a bikini that we've seen recycled on Twitter for 5 years. These are high-definition, never-before-seen shots from private collections. They show Meghan Markle in exclusive circles that she simply cannot explain away as vacations. What makes this leak absolutely explosive, and why the palace is reportedly watching closely, is the company she is keeping in these frames. Sources close to Middle Eastern elite circles are now speaking more openly than ever before. These photos allegedly place Meghan in the company of Gulf state royalty and Saudi business moguls during her pre-royal years. We aren't talking about Hollywood parties with George Clooney. We are talking about strategic, high-level relationship building in Monaco, Dubai, and the Mediterranean with men who control sovereign wealth funds. These images suggest a networking timeline that completely contradicts the struggling actress story she has sold to the world. And the timing? Right when she is trying to launch her new Netflix lifestyle brand? This wasn't an accident. This was an assassination of her character by someone who has the receipts. The yachting rumors have graduated from conspiracy theory to visual history. Let's stop being polite and look at the hard facts. The photos date back to the period between 2008 and 2012. At this time, Meghan Markle's career was, to put it mildly, stagnant. She was a briefcase girl on Deal or No Deal, standing in heels for hours to hold a number. She was picking up minor, blink and you miss it roles in pilots that never got picked up. Her reported income during this period would have barely covered rent in a decent Los Angeles apartment, headshots, and agent fees. Yet, the new images show her on super yachts. We aren't talking about a friend's boat on a lake. We are talking about 200-foot vessels with helipads, docked in the most expensive marinas on planet Earth, Monte Carlo, Portofino, the Amalfi Coast. In the photos, she is drinking vintage champagne that costs $500 a bottle. She is wearing designer resort wear. She is staying in locations where the nightly rate exceeds the annual salary of a typical struggling actor. This raises the math question that nobody in the mainstream media wants to ask. Who paid for this? A struggling actress does not have the budget to charter a yacht in the Mediterranean. She does not have the budget for first-class travel to the Middle East. She does not stumble into the VIP section of the Monaco Grand Prix by accident. The photos prove undeniably that someone else was footing the bill. Someone was sponsoring her presence there. And in the world of the global elite, nobody pays for a flight, a hotel, or a yacht charter without expecting something in return. The photos shatter the myth of the self-made woman. They show a woman who was being subsidized by powerful figures long before she met Prince Harry. Here's the detail that has the internet sleuths and industry insiders going crazy. The faces in the background of these new photos are not Hollywood producers. They are not American tech bros. They are figures associated with the Middle Eastern elite. We are talking about circles connected to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the Gulf states. Why does this matter? Because this is a very specific, very private world. The Hollywood circuit is loud. It wants publicity. The Gulf state circuit is quiet. It values discretion above all else. You do not get invited onto these boats because you are fun at parties. You get invited because you have been vetted. You get invited because you understand the code of silence. Sources from within these circles are suggesting that Meghan was part of an established networking circuit. This isn't just about dating. It's about providing company and atmosphere for high net worth individuals who require absolute privacy. The fact that Meghan looks completely comfortable in these photos, laughing, engaged, confident, sitting close to these men, shows that she wasn't a fish out of water. She wasn't a tourist. She knew how to navigate these men. She knew the protocol. The presence of Gulf state figures changes the narrative from Meghan was a party girl to Meghan was a networked operative. These are men who wield immense geopolitical power. If Meghan was in their inner circle, even as a guest, she was exposed to conversations, deals, and lifestyles that are miles away from the life of a cable TV actress. It suggests she was swimming in deep geopolitical waters long before she had a title. You don't just walk down the dock in Monaco and hop onto a Saudi prince's yacht. That is not how the world works. Someone has to open the door. Someone has to make the introduction. This brings us to the facilitators. In the shadows of these photos, we have to ask, who was her handler? We know about her connection to Marcus Anderson in Soho House later in her life. Anderson is often credited with introducing her to Harry. But these photos suggest that even before 2016, Meghan had connections to fixers, people whose job it is to populate these parties with beautiful, ambitious, articulate women. The leak suggests that Meghan wasn't just lucky. She was part of a roster. She was clued up, as sources say. She understood that if you want to jump from the D list to the A list, you don't do it by auditioning for cat food commercials in Burbank. You do it by networking on the Mediterranean with men who own the studios. These photos are the missing link. They explain how she went from deal or no deal to suddenly moving in circles that included Canadian prime ministers and British royalty. The yacht was the classroom where she learned how to charm billionaires. It was the training ground. She learned what they liked, what they talked about, and how to mirror their interests, skills she would later use with devastating effectiveness on Prince Harry. The most fascinating aspect of these leaks is the double life it exposes. On her now-defunct blog, The Tig, and in her interviews, Meghan painted a picture of herself as a relatable, hardworking girl next door who loved tacos and yoga. She curated an image of scrappy ambition. But these photos show a completely different woman. They show a woman who was living a life of unimaginable luxury in secret. While she was telling the public she was hustling for roles, she was sipping rosé on the deck of a mega yacht. Why hide it? If she was just vacationing with friends, why not post it? Why bury this chapter? Because she knew it didn't fit the brand. She knew that Yacht Girl is a label that destroys credibility in Hollywood. It implies that your success is transactional, not talent-based. She needed the world to believe she succeeded because of her acting chops on Suits. Admitting that she spent her summers networking with Gulf state billionaires would have ruined the feminist, self-made narrative she was carefully constructing. She effectively scrubbed this entire era from her history until now. Why now? Why January 2026? The timing of this leak is brutal. It is surgical. Meghan is currently in the middle of a massive rebrand. She is launching her new Netflix shows. She is selling jams and lifestyle products through American Riviera Orchard. She is desperately trying to position herself as a relatable mom, a modern Martha Stewart, and a feminist icon. Then boom! Photos of her partying with controversial billionaires drop online. It completely undermines her new brand. You can't sell authentic, rustic living and moral clarity when photos of you on a super yacht with Saudi elites are trending on Twitter. It makes her look fraudulent. This suggests that the person leaking these photos isn't just a random hacker. It is someone who wants to hurt her business. It is a warning shot. It feels like a message from her past saying, you can try to rewrite your history, but we have the evidence of who you really were. It screams of a vendetta. Is it a former friend she discarded? Is it a facilitator she refused to pay or acknowledge? Is it a wife of one of the men in the photos who is tired of seeing Meghan play the saint? Whoever it is, they waited until she had the most to lose, and then they pulled the trigger. Usually, when a story like this breaks, Meghan Markle sues. She is one of the most litigious public figures in the world. She sues newspapers for printing letters. She sues photographers for taking pictures of her in parks. She sues her own half-sister. But for these photos, complete, total radio silence. No lawsuits, no statements from her spokesperson, no cries of invasion of privacy, no sources close to the couple denying the context. Why? Because you cannot sue if the photos are real. You cannot sue if they were taken in a setting where you had no expectation of privacy, like a party. And most importantly, you cannot sue without validating the content. Her silence is the loudest admission of guilt. She knows she cannot draw attention to these images without people asking the follow-up questions. Meghan, who is that man next to you? Meghan, who paid for your ticket? Meghan, what was the nature of your relationship with this sheikh? She is terrified of discovery. If she sues, she opens herself up to a legal process where she has to answer questions under oath. She is hoping that if she stays quiet, the storm will pass. But in the age of the internet, nothing disappears. The silence just makes people dig deeper. It signals to the world that she is afraid of this footage. Here is a theory that is gaining traction because of these photos. For years, people have wondered how Meghan Markle landed the role of Rachel Zane on Suits. She had no major credits. She wasn't a known name. It was a lead role in a major cable drama. The timing of the yacht photos, 2008 to 2010, aligns perfectly with her casting in Suits, 2011. Is it possible that the connections she made on these yachts played a role? Hollywood is run on favors. If she impressed a high net worth individual on a yacht in Monaco, and that individual made a call to a producer or a studio head, that could have been the key. Give this girl an audition. The new photos suggest she had access to people with that kind of pull. It challenges the idea that she got the role purely on merit. It suggests that her yachting years were not just vacations, they were an investment strategy. She was investing her time in the people who could greenlight her career. And if that is true, then her entire hustle narrative is a lie. She didn't hustle in audition rooms, she hustled in VIP rooms. In intelligence circles, there is a term called kompromat, compromising material used to blackmail or control a public figure. These photos act as kompromat. The fact that they are leaking now suggests that someone is pulling on the leash. Is it possible that Meghan has stopped playing ball with the people who helped her rise? Is it possible that she has discarded the facilitators of her yachting years, just like she discarded her father and her friends? If so, this leak is a punishment. It is a reminder that she is not untouchable. It is a signal that her past is not buried. It is merely stored on a hard drive, ready to be deployed if she steps out of line. This adds a dark, conspiratorial layer to the story. It implies that the Duchess of Sussex is not a free agent. She is a woman running from a past that has finally caught up with her. We need to emphasize why the Gulf state connection specifically is so damaging for her current image. Meghan sells herself as a progressive, liberal feminist. She speaks out on social justice, women's rights, and equality. The Gulf state elite circles she was partying with represent the exact opposite of those values. These are often regimes with questionable human rights records, restrictive laws regarding women, and values that align nowhere near the woke brand Meghan peddles in California. By associating with them, by partying on their yachts and drinking their champagne, she reveals herself as a hypocrite. She is happy to take the money and the luxury from the very people her ideology supposedly opposes. It proves that her activism is a costume she puts on when the cameras are rolling, but when the cameras are off, she goes where the money is. The photos expose the transactional nature of her morality. If these photos exist, what else is in the vault? That is the question that must be keeping Meghan awake at night in the sprawling master bedroom of her Montecito mansion. These leaks prove that people from her past kept receipts. They have photos, they have dates, they have flight logs, And they might even have communications, emails, texts, DMs. We have seen the images of her on the deck, laughing with billionaires. But what about the images from inside the cabins? What about the images from the after parties? Meghan Markle spent years building a fortress around her reputation, creating a fairy tale about how she met Harry and how she built her career through grit and determination. These photos are the battering ram knocking that fortress down. They show a woman who didn't wait for destiny. She chased it across the ocean, hopping from yacht to yacht, using wealthy men as stepping stones until she reached the ultimate prize, a prince,